Good morning. So, there's a lot of talk lately about freight rates and who's responsible for freight rates. There's a lot of it on YouTube. There's a lot of back and forth between owner operators, trucking companies, and on the other side of the equation, even though all of you should be playing on the same side of the equation, are the freight brokers as well, right? So, the freight brokers are like, hey, don't look at us. It's not us, it's the shippers. And then the owner operators and the drivers are saying, no, it's the brokers for sure. There are bad players throughout this entire landscape. There are bad shippers, there are bad brokers, there are bad carriers, there are bad drivers. And you define what bad means to you, but whatever definition you come up with, I guarantee you in logistics, in trucking, in the ground transportation of things, you will find, especially in North America, you will find this this imbalance in terms of expectations and reality. You know what you get for the price that you pay. Um, I will say that, in my opinion, who is to blame for all these pathetic rates that we're seeing out on the boards? It's definitely the mega structures of this entire landscape. So what I mean by that is like mega shippers, mega brokers, and mega carriers all have a large role in why the rates are where they are. In addition to that, the external factors outside of logistics, 100%, yes, slow in demand, recession fears. Some experts say we're already in a recession. So, higher interest rates, you know, all of that plays a role in what we see on available loads in the market. Keep in mind that 80% of the freight that's out there isn't even posted on the load boards. So just because 20% of loads that are out there on the load boards are being posted at the rates they are, does not mean that the entire market is at that rate, because you're only taking a small percentage of what loads are available. You're taking that percentage and you are actually taking an average off of that 20% that's available, right? So you got to keep that in mind when you're looking at all of this stuff. There's a lot of factors involved, but definitely um, the mega structures, the mega brokers have a large play in this. I've seen the way the three-letter brokers do their bidding. I've seen how it works. They'll go aggressive to an extent in terms of with the shipper. They will go with aggressive pricing. And what I mean by aggressive, I mean super cheap pricing. And then what they will do on the carrier end, on the load boards that you see out there, they will then post it at a margin of 40%. They'll start sometimes at 50, they'll go down to 40. Worst case scenario, they'll try to stick to max, minimum 20%, right? And this is the way they're structured. This is what they're told to do. All of those sales reps out there that are, 20-year-olds that are just getting into logistics, they have no clue what the operating costs of a truck are. Those big mega companies should be teaching these people, these individuals, these sales reps, what the operating costs of a vehicle are that's running down the road. It should definitely be um, a given. It should definitely be shown that yes, this is what the operating costs of a 53 footer going down the road, fully loaded, what that looks like, what the operating costs are. Explain to them what the fuel costs are, why plays such a large role in the expenses of a trucking company, what the wages are, what the tolls are, what the administrative costs are, the insurance costs, the fact that you have to be regulated and you have to be compliant with everything that's going on in the industry at all times in order for you to not go out of business due to fines or being shut down by the DOT. There are a lot of things that the trucking companies have to do to stay in business. I have been a trucking company. I've been through these cycles before. I've been in these situations before, and I have been out on the load boards at times when I did not have direct freight from shippers or I did not have freight from my regular brokers. By the way, the brokers I worked with were selective. I selected these brokers based off of business. How much business do they give me? What the rates are that they are offering to me. Uh, if they can stick to the rates that I'm offering them. I made it imperative I don't go below 245 a mile. I don't care what kind of load it is. That's bare minimum. That's absolute bare minimum to break even. I'm going to be at 245 and that is it. I'll rather sit my truck than take a load for a buck 60 a mile. Rather sit that truck because that it's just not worth it. It's just not the amount of times I came back empty from certain metro areas or certain areas throughout the states and Canada because the rates were awful. I'm immeasurable, and you get better at it as you go. You learn not to send your trucks to certain areas because the outbound freight is disastrous. A lot of that has stems with the mega brokers having a large footprint in there, so they have very aggressive pricing. So everything outbound from that area is brutal, brutal. I have to say brutal instead of the other word that I was about to say. Um, like, and even like when you go to East Coast, the Northeast part of the USA, or the far Atlantic of Canada, terrible outbound, low volume, low rates, more trucks than there are loads. It's terrible. In addition to that, large footprint by mega brokers. And what I noticed through all of that was when these big mega brokers are out there, you as a trucking company don't have to take that cheap load. Just stop running their loads. Just stop running the mega brokers loads. Just stop doing it. If you focused on small, medium size, you have a pool of brokers that you like to use, you're going to see a lot more success that way instead of literally giving your capacity out for free to CH Robinson and TQL and the likes. It's not worth it. It's definitely not worth it. So from that perspective, to answer the question, who's to blame? There's so many factors involved, but it's not brokers like myself. My volumes are way down because the big boys are coming in and sweeping up like crazy. Um, my margins are 6, 7, 8%. So like you're getting those percentages if you have a dispatch service. If you're using a dispatch service, you're getting the percentages that I'm getting on my loads, right? So what should I do? Should I just run loads at 20 bucks, $10 and have nothing to show for it at the end of the month? Is that better? I'm not the one that's getting the high volume loads at the moment. It's the big players in the game, and they are suffocating the rates right now. And it's this cycle, and it's the terrible kind of spiteful cycle too. It's not just the fact that we have low demand and all that stuff. It's like, oh, you know what? Oh, carriers got the best of me in 2021, so now it's time to pay them back. No, that's not how you build relationships. That's not how you build relationships with your carriers. That's not how you build relationships with in your private life, in your personal life. You don't do that either. So why would you do that on a professional basis, right? This industry is very closely knit. People will know when you try to screw someone over. So there's no way that it makes sense for you to do that, to give people super cheap rates, to lie about appointments, to lie about pickups and drops and post loads like, yeah, this load's coming out of Chicago and it's going to Detroit. The next thing you know, it's out of Belvedere, Illinois, and it's going down to Tilbury, Ontario, because it's close to Detroit, right? So these deceptive business practices by mega brokers also affect all of us. They affect me. When I go into a shipper, if one of those mega brokers made a big mistake, it looks bad on me too, because I'm a broker. So they're like, oh, we don't work with brokers. We don't want to work with brokers. So it affects all of us. But I understand the pain of the trucking companies. I get it. I get what you guys are going through. I get that you have insurance payments that are obligatory that you have to pay. I understand that you have um, maintenance and repair costs that can sometimes they fluctuate. It's variable, but sometimes they're through the roof, especially when you have an unexpected thing happen, blown tire, whatever it may be, whatever it may be. It could be the smallest thing. The smallest repair bill now is like $400, you know. That could wipe out more than the profit margin you made on that load after you pay everything. So I get it. I understand. That's why when I come to a carrier and I say, "What do you need on this load to fully commit and stay profitable? What do you need on this shipment or these shipments or this set of shipments or this lane that's going to be running from May until September or May until next May or whatever the case may be?" And what are your fuel surcharges that you want to hedge against whatever is going to be in store for that lane moving forward, because of the fuel costs and stuff like that varies throughout the year as well. So I get it, and I get the frustration, but trust me, this frustration needs to be taken out on the mega shippers, the mega brokers, and the mega carriers. You as a 1-2 truck operator, a 12 truck company, I understand it's difficult, if the mega brokers are doing what they're doing with the rates. I get it. I get it. Even if the contract stuff is, seasonal and it's lower, whatever the case may be, whatever the variability reasons that are affecting the amount of freight that you get. I saw a guy the other day talk about how he, for the first time in like a decade, he had all his trucks sitting. He took an outbound load from Chicago. Um, so just one truck the other day, and brutal rates, brutal, paying absolutely terrible. And the others just sat because there's no point. Why would he send his truck from Chicago down to, like, I don't even know, Atlanta, for example, and have outbound again terrible from Atlanta back to Chicago? What? Why? There's no point for him to do that. They'll make more money having the truck sit. Unfortunately, that's what it seems like. That's what it seems like what's happening, because I just think there's a lot more that needs to be said. I see a lot of stuff on YouTube where, owner operators are saying, expressing their frustrations, and they're doing it onto all of us, brokers. It's not me, man. It's not me in terms of us small guys. you know I work from my home. Yes, I work from my home office. I get it. You're out on the road. I get it. My dad was a truck driver. I used to go out on the road with him. I understand the difficulties involved in having your assets and trying to put food on the table for your family. I get all of that, but we have to sift out these mega structures that are causing these issues. Don't if the mega shippers aren't going to be shippers of choice, you know. So don't run their loads. Mega brokers don't run their loads. You know, it's really that simple. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. The rates will start to go back up. They have to. The less capacity, the higher the rates. It's simple math. So don't do it. Don't do it. And there's always that one guy that falls for the trap. Oh, I got to make my truck payment, so I have to go do this load for 80 cents a mile. You're losing. Not only are you going to struggle to make that truck payment still, you're also on the losing end. You're running your truck into the ground. You know, every mile that you run down the road, you're a day closer to maintenance. So you're a day closer to pulling out your wallet and paying for a maintenance bill. You know your limit in terms of your operating cost and stick within it, at least on the minimum side of things. So if you know it's going to take you 225 minimum just to stay afloat, then go and bid that rate accordingly. You know, don't stick to 225, don't stick to 205, don't stick to $1.80. If you know what it is, if you know what your freight rates are, then stick to that freight rate. Stick to what's going to make you profitable, and hopefully one day even scale. One day hopefully even scale. So yeah, in terms of what is fair or what isn't fair, you should know that through your operating costs. What is fair is what keeps you in business. That's what's fair. You know, don't be going running loads for brokers for free because he'll get you on the next one. That it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. He's just going to find the next cheap guy down the road. That's what Coyote does. That's what TQL does. The amount of times I bailed Coyote by running a load for $1,500 because it has to be $1,500 because it's my operating costs. The amount of times the next time that load came out and the amount of times they gave it to the cheapest carrier that's running it at 650. They are not going to give you that load for what it's supposed to be running at. But if enough people stand up and say STOP, we've had enough of this. This has to stop. Like what? Look at in France what they do when things go wrong. Why can't that happen here? Look what they do in France every time. Just research it. Look at truckers in France. What happens when some social issue pops up or economic issue pops up? Look what they do for their people, for themselves as well as French citizens. You don't have to. It has nothing to do with being violent. Just know your worth. Just know how much it is that you are worth as a truck driver. You are everything to us, everything we touch, everything that moves. This Kleenex box, this coffee I'm drinking, this pen on my desk, this phone, everything in this office and everything in my house and everything in your house and your truck has been brought to you by a truck and brought to me by a truck. So your value, there's a lot of, and even on different platforms, not just YouTube but other platforms, truckers that are behind the wheel that are waiting for the next load, or are doing a rest at a rest area or something, are going live and talking about trucking isn't what it used to be. Lots of disrespect going on. There's a lot of disrespect between truckers. There's a lot of disrespect from brokers towards truckers. There's a lot, people don't know what they don't know, so teach them. The next time somebody is disrespectful towards you, stop them. Say, okay, explain to me how that shirt on you got to you. Explain to me how that sandwich you're eating, how those ingredients got to the place you bought that sandwich, or the ingredients that you made that sandwich from that you bought at the grocery store. So don't disrespect me. I've done way more for you and your family than you have for me. So keep that in mind. And so you have to do this approach this way. You have to open up the channels of communication and talk with people and discuss with them why we are in the current state of affairs that we are in when it comes to trucking. When it comes to these rates, there's a lot of variables involved. A large part of the rates that you're seeing on the load board, from the 20% of the loads that are posted, comparatively speaking, to the 80% that are actually never even never even touch a load board. So the rates, the average rates from those 20% are terrible right now because the mega brokers, the vultures of the world, the megas, are doing what they're doing because we as a civilization are letting them do it. So let's not let them do it. The TQLs, the CH Robinsons, and the like, the coyotes of the world. I've talked to these brokers outside and off the record about their practices. They are taught to make that 40% profit, right? I'm not taught that. I'm taught to go to a trucking company and say, what the fuck do you need on this load? What do you need on this load? What is it that's going to keep you in business? And then whatever that rate is, I can go and take that to the customer and do a cost plus model where I add my 6, 7, 8%. And rinse and repeat. My thing is through, if I have 400 customers and 20% of those customers give me a load today, 10% of those customers give me a load today, I've made my paycheck for the day and that's it. I don't have to be a mega broker, but what I'm saying is those guys with all of the contracts and all of the customers and all of that, they go. So let's say my price is 2,600. They go in, they lowball me, they give a price of 2,200, right? And then that price of 2,200, then they lowball the carriers and give them prices of, that's where you see the 1,400 on the 2,400 lane or 2,600 lane, and they're big profit margins. Because people are taking it, but people need to know their operating costs. They need to stand up for themselves and for the industry as a whole. How long can this sustain? I don't know. This cycle seems to be going a lot longer than I'd like. So, yeah. Anyways, my rant is over. Let me know in the comments what you think, what you think the main reasons are. This is from just me looking like this at the landscape, saying, yeah, it's clear as day what's happening. I've been in the cycle as an asset-based trucking company. I've been in the cycle as a broker before. Now I'm in this cycle again as a small broker, of course, as always. So I get it. I'm on the carrier side of this equation, and I'm on your side of the argument because it's don't get me wrong, there are bad carriers out there all over the place, and there are bad brokers and there are bad shippers. That's guaranteed. But there's a lot of people out there that are struggling right now that are trying to feed their families. And a lot of those guys are truckers, and a lot of them are trucking companies as well that have 5 trucks, that have 10 trucks, that have 15 trucks, right? There's a company out of North Carolina that's just going bankrupt because one of their largest customers pulled a contract underneath them like a rug. Just why they did it? Yes, mega broker came in, gave a better price. They got lowballed. And if it wasn't a mega broker, guess who it was? Mega carrier, right? So it's terrible. And I'm sorry that it's happening to everybody, especially truckers. I'm very sorry that you have to go through this. It is not pleasant. The last time I went through this as an asset-based company, it was April 2nd when the doors shut for a lot of my customers because of COVID, April 2nd, 2020. We tried for 4 months to get out of it. Nothing. I mean, load boards were dead, doors, docks were shut. So I had nothing to. I had to take the owner operators and I had to go door by door and say, "Yeah, can you take these guys in?" And guess who those companies were? Companies that had a lot more trucks than I did. Right? So I get it from that perspective. I know the stress that you have to go through and the shaking of the head when you see the rates, the amount of F bombs I've dropped as an asset based company looking at the rates throughout these down cycles. It's terrible. Sometimes I actually had to call TQL. I had to call CH Robinson and ask him, kidding me? Are you joking me right now? Are you joking me on 700 miles? You're offering $700. Are you joking me right now? It's 42,000 pounds. It's 53-foot drive end, you know? And they always, like 8 times out of 10, let's say, when they reply, it's some 20-year-old kid that has no clue about anything, literally anything. He was thrown into that position. Yep, here's a Coyote shirt, here's a Coyote hat. Let's go at it. Let's go. Let's go. F the truckers, right? For them, we're a dime a dozen. It's kind of like when I was an asset based. It's like, oh, you know what? If this guy doesn't want it, next guy will. We'll find the sucker to run this at $700 for 700 miles. Don't do it. Don't take cheap freight. I mean, the equation is so simple. Just don't do it. Just simply don't do it. It's you will save in the long run. You will do well for yourself in the long run if you don't do that, right? So this industry is beautiful. There are a lot of good players as well, but the terrible ones seem to highlight everything on all sides of the equation. But it doesn't have to be that way. It does not have to be that way. There was a gentleman on YouTube that I saw recently. He was on a live show. I think it was on the Mother Trucka show. I just started follow that guy. I subscribed to him on YouTube. And some gentleman was talking about boycotting TQL. He's got a group of 20,000 truckers that are going to do it. It's got to be at a much larger scale than that for it to be effective. And it has to start like today. Like you can't plan this. Yeah, in 2 months we're going to stop our trucks. What's going to happen in these next 2 months? It's not something you don't plan on it. You know what? In 2 months we're going to get together at a park. We're going to roast some burgers, hold up some signs, get a T-shirt. It's not going to do anything for you. That's not going to change the landscape. That's not going to change what's going to happen moving forward, right? Enough is enough with the megas out there. Enough is enough. I'm not struggling because I don't have maintenance repairs right now and I don't have insurance costs. I get that. I have insurance costs as a broker and I have my bond and all that kind of stuff and whatever. I do have expenses. We all in life have expenses. But yours are elevated because they're immediate. It's like monthly. It's got to be on that date. You got to pay it. You can't miss these payments. You got to make sure you got enough money for that. And in addition to running that rig down the road, you got to have money for life as well. So I get it. I understand. But just stop taking cheap freight. Stop doing it for anybody that offers you cheap freight. And don't let a broker tell you what your operating costs are. They should understand that if you give a rate that's super cheap to them, in their mind should be like, "Sir, I don't think that's accurate. Are you sure about that? Because it's going to be a lot more to operate your truck than $1.60, going 800 miles or going 2,000 miles or whatever the case may be." Right? But obviously they're not gonna be as kind that way. They're not gonna stop you. They're gonna just say book it now. Here it is. Here's an auto tender right away. You want to do it for free, sir? You want to do it for free? Terrible. Some stuff that happens out there, absolutely terrible. Anyways, God bless. Please, for the love of God, stop taking cheap freight and stop doing loads for mega brokers, period. Just stop running for them. It's going to open doors for people that can actually give you proper rates if you don't have your own sales team that can go in and get direct shipper freight. We do play a good role in the market because we can act as your sales reps for a small cut. And I'm not talking 30, 40, 50% or whatever the case may be. I'm talking like a small, almost like a dispatch cut. It's that simple. Anyways, take care. God bless. Stay safe. I am so sorry this is happening to all of you. Stay blessed. And hopefully next time this happens, we're going to be talking about how the rates are so high. We don't know what we're going to do. So anyways, cheers. Keep going. Keep hustling. Keep trucking. And love your family. Respect. Ciao.